Good morning, everyone. Mr. Adedotun, please, can you request to join? Good morning, Mr. Adedotun.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone that is on this call. This is an NCAfrica Live, and our topic for today will be the impact of climate change on nutrition in Nigeria. Now, climate change is an undeniable reality. We can't all just let it go anymore. According to the World Meteorological Organization, in 2021, Africa was the warmest it's the warmest, either the third or the fourth warmest it has ever been on record. Now, despite that, we still say, no, there's no climate change. We can't continue doing that. Now, Africa is one of the lowest contributors to greenhouse emission gases, but yet we are the most vulnerable continent. Now, it causes things such as rising global temperature, extreme weather, and a rise in sea level. It also disrupts ecosystems, which makes it hard for communities to have access to nutritious and good food sources. As we all know, Nigeria, there was a point in time where it wasn't like this. The weather wasn't going up and down. It was just the weathers and the seasons were as it was. Now, for us to fully understand the impacts of climate change, we're joined today by Mr. Owolabi. Mr. Owolabi was a PhD student at the Vegas University and Research in the Netherlands. He studied nutrition and health. He has devoted his career and his education to combating nutrition and improving food systems for vulnerable societies and communities. Beyond his academic pursuits, he's a passionate advocate for health, nutrition, climate change, and sustainability. He's also an active member of the Nutrition Society. Now, before we start, I would like everyone to put their questions in the chat box, because it's going to be an interactive session and it's also going to be very informative. Is it not going to be, Mr. Owolabi?
Yes, of course. It's an important question. It's an important discussion we have this morning. So indeed, we'll look forward to that.
Yes, sir. Now, please, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your expertise in the nutrition field and even some past projects you can?
Thank you so much, NCAfrica, for the invitation and for wanting to have me speak on your platform on a very important question and topic which we globally began to do some great discussions around. Indeed, my name is Adedotun Owolabi. I have a PhD in human nutrition and health. My background was in food science and technology, and then moving to nutrition. And then in the last few years, I've been involved in quite a number of projects, as much as I can remember, in the large-scale food fortification kind of studies. Some projects around intervention studies, of course, among toddlers in Nigeria, malnourished toddlers in Nigeria. Some collaborations with with the National Home Grown School Feeding Program, as well as a board member of the National Council of Nutrition, which is chaired by the former Vice President of Nigeria. Quite a number of other studies which we have also been part of, also with other organizations. Recently, we had a study in Nigeria among farmers, among Ministry of Agriculture and stakeholders around nutrition. We also studied. We took a look into their opinions about large-scale food fortification and biofortification. Of course, we delved into some climate change discussion, especially in Kebbi State, in Sokoto, in Kaduna, Kano, and some other states, of course, where we know that these states are quite prone to climate change disruptions. So far so good. Those are some of the projects I've been personally involved in nutrition and how it then relates with climate change.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Now, when most people think of climate change, they normally just think that, like, oh, the weather is going to get hotter, the weather get colder. In fact, the seasons aren't that it's just going to be raining up. But most people don't really connect all that with agriculture. They think of it in two different aspects. They don't really think of it together. They don't really join it together. Now, can you explain in a very simple way so that me and everybody else in this session can see how climate change does affect the availability of fresh and nutritious foods, and why should they even care?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. That's a very important question that you just asked. As we know, climate in Nigeria, like many other places around the world, big impact on farming, on agriculture, and indirectly and directly on nutrition and the health of the populace of the community. This is very important also because what is very important to know is that when the weather is too hot, it's not good for the climate. It's not good for agriculture. When it is too cold, it is not good for agriculture. It can be difficult for some certain crops to grow. And that's also why we have some different types of crops that can grow in a particular location. So you can imagine that in that same location, there is now extreme weather, extreme climate. For that particular crop, it won't grow. And the impact of that is that the people who really rely on the consumption of that particular food will have to suffer for it. So that's how to think about climate change and the impact on nutrition and the health of people. We can also talk about rising temperature, around the world. I mean, in the last, I've experienced heat wave in Europe, at least for the last in the last 5 years. I've experienced it like almost every year. Yeah, in the last 8 years, I've experienced almost every year where you see temperature rising up to 42 degrees, 45 degrees in Europe during summer. And then when you expect it to be cold, it is still warm. That's also not good for the environment. That's also not good for the soil. I remember very well in the Netherlands 3 years ago when there was 6 months without rain. The whole country was really panicking because now they know the implication on agriculture and all of that. So indeed, this is how to look at climate change and what is the impact on agriculture, and of course directly now back to nutrition. So the food we eat is directly linked to climate change because climate also affects what we grow, and then of course directly now to what we eat.
Yes, sir. And like you already stated, it also actually affects food security, does it not, sir?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Like the Netherlands have rain for so long. I can't even imagine how the farmers felt in that time. And that actually was my next question, how it would affect food security. And you've already spoken on that. Now, I would ask about the demographics and the communities that are really vulnerable when it comes to climate change having an effect nutrition, especially in Nigeria, sir. So which age groups, which genders, which social class is most affected by climate nutrition?
Thank you very much. It's almost impossible to attribute climate change to current nutrition status in Nigeria. And that's because, as you know, that Nigeria is largely and hugely import dependent. We import quite a lot of our foods from across the world. Wheat is imported from Ukraine. We import rice. We import rye. We import quite a lot of things, sorghum, and almost everything imported into Nigeria for food. But then, of course, we have quite a large chunk of some of our perishables coming from the north, and the north is the least developed part of the country. We have more rural areas in the north than any part of the nation. So for me, first, I think the rural areas are first affected by the impact of climate change on nutrition, especially because they are largely dependent on agriculture, both for food and also for income. And so that's my first point of contact. And then extreme weather then affects them, of course, now because now they cannot grow they cannot grow food per time. The type of food crops they would like to grow every moment, every time. And so that's very important. So the moment climate change eats on them, it's eating on on their income and also on their consumption, which then further impacts their nutritional status. The bulk of the food we also eat comes from the north, and so what it means is that there is also a ripple effect on the other part of the nation, where we depend on them to bring the food to the south, to the west. But if we don't get the food, then we also have an issue with our nutritional intake, with our dietary intake, which is very, very important. Secondly, the low income population are also highly affected by this set of people. Sorry, by this set of by climate change. They are very vulnerable, and so they lack resources to adapt to changing food availability. So just like I explained with regards to food availability from the north down to the west and the east, and to the east and the south, what then happens is that because there is a shortage of food supply from the north where food is being produced. Of course, the normal law of demand and supply then comes in. Because then the prices of food goes up. Then the low income population are unable to purchase this food at the higher prices, and then they begin to shrink their consumption. Before you know it, we begin to talk about impact of this on malnutrition and all of that. So that's very important to note. And another set of people that I think are also very important to talk about impacted by climate change are the set of people who live in the coastal lines. And I will always talk about the set of Makoko dwellers in Lagos who are living right in the water there. I'm not sure, but I think I heard about 400,000 people living in the Makoko environs, and you can imagine the impact of rising water level on those set of people. So that's also another set of people that we're talking about. We're talking about the guys who live in the south region. This in Bayelsa, in Delta, in Port Harcourt, and so on and so forth. They are also highly affected with the high rise of water and then sea level. And so those are very major set of people that we have to talk about. Recently, I think in 2022, reports have shown that Nigeria has experienced the worst flooding ever, not ever, but in the last 10 years, that has displaced more than 2 million people. Over 300,000 homes have been displaced. So you can imagine what is happening, really. We haven't seen this before, and you will see consistently the number of homes that have been displaced. I saw a report a few days ago about how many flooding has happened around the world in just 1 week. We experienced more than 20 countries or thereabouts experiencing flooding in the same week. You know, it's in Mexico, in India, in Morocco, and several other places. You know, so these are people who we have to also talk about, and then begin to look at how we develop interventions for them. The internal displaced people, we have them quite a lot in many places, in Cross River State, in Abuja, in Benue, in Borno, and so many places like that. You know, they are also very and highly affected by climate change because now there is shortage of food, income, food for them. You know, that's automatically affect their nutritional status. So these are people, these are different demographics that I think we have to take a look into. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly insightful. Now, just to piggyback off that, my next question would be: these northerners and these or communities in the coastline areas, how do we ensure that they're not so vulnerable anymore, that they're not disproportionately affected by climate change, especially on their nutrition?
Yeah. This is a very important question. So when you started, you talked about current attitude of Nigerians towards climate change. We feel it's not a big deal for now. We feel we are not contributing so much to the gas emission. We feel we are still very safe. Yes, that's true. And so we really are not working towards, we're not doing so much to ensure that we protect the current climate, the current ecosystem that we have. We are really not doing so much. So if you ask me, number one, what I would like to do is to advocate for policies and governance structure that prioritize the needs and rights of marginalized population, which I just talked about, you know, and their participation, because they are a very important set of people, you know, and they are in decision making. They have to be part of the decision making. They have to be part of the table where we discuss these policies and that concerns them. You know, so that's very important. That's the first thing I think we have to do. We have to first advocate for the policies and governance structure that prioritize them. Secondly, one of the few things that I think we haven't done well is that we have attributed climate change to our nutritional problems, which I think is completely wrong. Like earlier said before, we are highly import dependent, and so it is almost impossible to attribute climate change to our nutritional problems in Africa, in Nigeria in particular, because we don't already produce enough food anyways. We import those foods. So I would rather say the climate change in the other countries where we import foods are probably having more impact on us than the climate change right in Nigeria. You know, that's the first way to think about it. Why did I say that? And that's also because I'm here to see research. I'm here to see evaluations. I'm here to see monitoring structures that already can attribute these two topics. You know, in Nigeria, to say, okay, well, we discovered that because we had this flooding, it has impacted the production of food to this amount, to this percentage. You know, this kind of things. You know, so we don't really have the data. So I would personally like to advocate for data, for research, to first understand what is the magnitude of the impact of climate change on nutrition in Nigeria before we go ahead and begin to talk of intervention studies, intervention that has to happen. So that is the second thing I like to do. Secondly, we must begin to promote climate resilient agricultural practices. You know, I could remember I was part of a USAID study which I conducted in Sokoto and Kebbi states in 2001. And I remember meeting with International Food, IFAD representative in Kebbi State, where they talked about the progress they're currently making with agriculture, with farmers in Kebbi State, with providing them with some drought-resistant crops which are very good. I mean, this is a very important stuff crop. They talked about crops that can withstand extreme weather, extreme temperatures, and all of that. So we must begin to embrace all of that. As a nation, not as a state, not as a community, but as a nation. It must become a complete and a complete holistic package in agriculture in Nigeria. So we must promote that and support that as well. We must encourage diversified food production. We are also a rice company, a rice country. We eat a lot of rice in Nigeria. We do less of fruit and vegetables, but we eat a lot of rice, a lot of carbohydrates. We take a lot of soft drinks, a lot of sugar-based foods, and all of that. But we must begin to see how we embrace a diversified production of foods. Kebbi State produces quite a lot of rice for Nigeria right now. But then in other part of this country, what else do we produce in that complements what has been done somewhere else? And then we can call a sustainable food production system. We really do not have that also right now. And so it's also something that I think we must begin to do, encourage diversified food production and consumption. That will reduce dependence on a single crop for our source of food. So for me, for now, I think those are very important strategies to look into. Yes. There is also something that I think Ifad also mentioned when I visited Kebbi State, was that they also have created a early warning system for extreme weather. So farmers are aware on time when there is extreme weather, and so they can already begin to plan against such atrocity and crisis on their farm and all of that. So that's also another thing that I felt we might want to do to ensure that vulnerable and disproportionately vulnerable set of people are not highly affected with climate change.
So all these points I have just said down right now, I love them all, and I'm benefiting so much from them. I hope everybody listening is also benefiting so much from them. So you spoke about drug-resistant crops. You also spoke about alarm for unexpected. Are there any other strategies or solutions, especially when it comes to fortifying food, so that we can mitigate the negative effects of climate change? Are there any that are available now? That they're going to be available in the nearest future?
Okay. Yeah, so certainly there are several innovative strategies and solutions that can help mitigate the negative effect of climate on nutrition in Nigeria. Like I earlier talked about, we did some studies around large-scale food fortification and some biofortification in Nigeria. So, I mean, this is also where it starts from, because we must begin to look at how to produce, generate such kind of crops, biofortified crops, where we, with those kind of traits of drought resistant. In fact, we already, I think this is already going in Nigeria. I think I once had a discussion with the country director for Harvest Plus in Nigeria with regards to crops, high yielding crops, So because we already have an idea of when we might likely have flooding in a particular location, you can decide to plant some high yielding crops that can grow within a specific time. So instead of 3 months or 4 months, it probably will grow in 1 month. And then it will be high yield as well. Those are the kind of crops we are looking at that I think has to go viral, has to go big in Nigeria. In that case, those crops are not affected by flood, are not affected by extreme weather, are not affected by droughts and all of that. So those are the kind of things we should begin to look at. So indeed, large fortification and biofortification of local staples, one of the major approaches that we have to use. Yes, we have local staples like the rice, like corn, like maize, and so many of them. So we know that climate change can affect the availability of certain foods, and then of course potentially leading to micronutrient deficiencies in diet. But in biofortification is indeed a very promising approach to combat those occurrences. Fortified foods, like we know, can be produced using a variety of crops with the nice traits that I talked about, and it can help in reducing malnutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, and all of that. And also can also be we can make it also a tailored intervention. So, for example, I talked about a national home grown school feeding program project. We have about 9.9 million Nigerian children who are school age children. 9.9 million school age children is a lot. We can decide to tailor fortification of foods towards them, to the school feeding program, and then in that way, you can ensure that you are saving and preserving lives of 9.9 million children in Nigeria. So that's a tailored fortification program that can happen. However, there is also the need of collaboration between the government, the private sector, the development agencies, and the research agencies. Which currently does not exist. We do not have all of that as such. There's quite a lot of efforts from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, from Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition on food fortification. In fact, I mean, GAIN probably should change their name to food fortification giants, champion, because there is quite a lot of that in Nigeria and across the world, and so they are doing a lot, and I think there's now need for a lot of collaborations with them, and also the research agency, the institutes, that can help also with researches. In that way, we will not work in isolation, and then we'll probably get a nice result faster than we currently have at the moment. So those are a few points that I feel are very important in putting this together.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, before I go to the next question, I would just like to remind everyone in this session with us that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box now. During the Q&A session, we will get to them. Now, sir, for my next question, education is key. You've already spoken about children. We know that education is where the future is leading. We need to know about the past and the future. We also need to be aware. Now, how can we education and awareness to improve nutrition, adapting to climate change in Nigeria? Any classes you expect schools to? Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. Please go on.
Okay. So at the moment, we do not have a lot of education and awareness around climate change in Nigeria. In fact, probably you'll be surprised to know that even the learned do not understand what climate change. Very few people in nutrition, very few people in the other aspect of profession do have that detailed understanding of what climate change is all about. So first, I would like to encourage and say, can we embrace and advocate and support, promote climate change education in Nigeria first? How many institutions in Nigeria have that as a students have to take in school with regards to relationship between the climate change and the course they are currently studying. Even in nutrition in Nigeria, climate change on nutrition, and so I think that's how we have to start. We have to create ambassadors, even from the institutions, on climate change and the role of climate change and nutrition and health. The government have to talk about more about climate change. We must begin to see how is it affecting the governance? How is it affecting income? How is it affecting our consumption? and not just food consumption, power, energy consumption, and several other consumptions. Because there is a lot of interconnectivity in this regard. And so we must begin to do all of that. In fact, I remember a couple of guys are currently working on educating students in secondary school, in primary school, on climate change. Where it's a good way to start, which I think that's what happened. It's a good way to start, but then we have to do more. The government has to take it on head on, and increase this awareness. We have to talk more about it. We have to create more awareness around it, around climate change, and the impacts on what we do, on who we are as a nation. That's very important.
Thank you so much. I truly believe that it should be taught in schools, even if it's just a general studies in university or even in secondary school, because I believe it's not going anywhere anytime soon unless we take steps by educating and educating the future generations on the impact it will have. Thank
Exactly.
you. Thank you so much. Now, my next question is that for anyone in the comments or anyone in the streets of Lagos or in Nigeria that wants to make changes to their own diet so that they can be healthier, but they feel like the related issues are going to stop them, what are suggestions for them?
If I understand your question, you are asking what do they need to do?
Yes, sir.
To contribute positively to the rising case issue of climate change, right?
Yes, sir. What should they add to their diet or remove diets? Hope I'm clear. My question is clearer.
Yes, it is clearer.
Okay.
And, and the reason I'm laughing is because in 2019 or 18, I can't remember. I remember I took a course in my PhD. It was a master class though, and there was this discussion around what is sustainable. And I'm not sure if you know that there were publications around promoting plant-based foods and reducing animal-based foods. And we did a study. We decided to study it, and of course, a couple of other guys have studied it. FAO supported that particular study that was encouraging plant-based foods, and quite a number of other big organizations, WHO and all of that. And then they eventually discovered that the guys who were promoting it were vegans, and so for me that was a no-go area first to because there's already a bias on that study. However, one of the few suggestions that has really that is still very important to take is the reduction of meat production. I mean, everybody talks about it, and I think it is very important to do this. We don't consume such an enormous amount of meat and beef in Africa, in Nigeria in particular, because we still do not have enough anyways, But of course, we see that in Europe, they already consume about 150% of their requirements. So there's a lot of advocacy around reducing their consumption of meat and beef and all of that, But for Africa, for Nigeria, it is our major source of vitamin B12. It's a major source of vitamin B12. So we do already consume enough anyways. So I will not completely say we should reduce our meat consumption, but of course, it is one of the major things that has to happen. And why is this? That's because raising livestock for meats and dairy is a significant source of methane emission, and then of course nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, and all of that. So they contribute quite a lot, and this is also why there's a discussion around reduction of meat consumption. If you look at for dairy in Nigeria, we don't produce a lot of dairy products in Nigeria. They are always imported. Like I earlier said, we are highly import dependent. About 90%, maybe 90%, 80 or 90% of the milk we drink in Nigeria are imported from other countries. So we don't produce it. We probably produce just less than 20% of what we drink in Nigeria. So we already cannot see the impact of large meat rear on the climate change in Nigeria. But then it's something we have to look forward to. So everybody has to begin to look at that. Secondly, everybody on the street and at home in their household must begin to look at how do I produce food for myself. So I always I always encourage people to develop an attitude or a culture of home gardening, whatever small garden you have, behind your house, beside your house, whatever it is, turn it into a garden. My parents have a garden in there, but at the back of their house where they pluck their tomatoes and their peppers and all of those kind of things. They don't have to buy it anymore. They already just do it right there within the confines of their house, and they can use it for their food. In that way, you are not paying for that. You're not paying for that. You're just going to have fun with that. On the other hand, we also have to see how we increase the consumption of land, consumption of some other. So when I talked about reduced reduction in meat production or meat consumption, we also have to replace with something. So that means we have to increase the consumption of plant-based legumes, like beans, like soya beans and lentils, and so on and so forth. Some of these crops also have quite a high amount of nutrients that are very important and very useful for growth and development of everybody. There is always a challenge. There's just one challenge with that, and that is the fact that everybody says, well, the protein content in the protein quality of plant-based foods are not biologically available or are not complete, which is yes, of course. But then there is soya beans, which has complete protein quality. So that's just something we can take a look at, and there's quite a number of other research going on with regards to what type of other complete proteins that can be taken. There is now research going on consumption of insects, as a alternative protein intake. Yes, I know you don't like to hear that, but really it contains quite a lot of nutrients. There are worms that can be eaten now. I haven't taken any of them before. I still have to do a lot of mindset change, which everybody has to do. So that is very important. Something else that I think everybody has to take into consideration is we have to see how to prevent food waste. Now, I read my lips. It is prevention and not reduction. We have to see how to prevent food waste right from our house, even in processing, in food processing, in manufacturing organization, and so on and so forth. We spend so much money right now in Nigeria on food waste, on clearing food waste. So we have to begin to see how to prevent that. A significant amount of food that we eat at every stage of a food supply chain end up being wasted, and also knowing well that right now post-harvest loss is a big issue in Nigeria. We do not have those preservation techniques and that can preserve the foods and then probably diversify them into something else, and then it can also be useful for us. Food waste creates methane. And they increase the greenhouse gas emission from the deposition. So those are very important things that we have to take a look at. Prevention of food waste. Those are a few things that I feel an individual can do to reduce the impact of climate change on their health and nutrition.
Thank you. I feel my next question, which was also going to be my last question, was actually how we would even reduce our carbon footprint. So, like a lot of the points you made before actually applies to my next question. But if you can give us a little bit more on how we can reduce our climate footprint.
Yes. I did a short study, just a short appraisal on Nigerian climate footprint and compare with other countries. I'm very, I mean, and this is also why I said that we cannot attribute our current nutritional status to climate change, because we are already not contributing a lot. Anyways, unfortunately, the fact that we are not contributing a lot does not mean we are not going to be experiencing a lot of the impact, And this is also what happened to Somalia last year and this year. They went through serious drought, which caused a lot of undernutrition, malnutrition, and death of so many children and women last year and this year. And some other part of Ethiopia and some other countries also went through such a lot. So if you ask, what exactly do they produce? How much are they contributing to the gas emission? I mean, they are not doing that. They are not doing a lot, but then they are experiencing the impact. So indeed, there's a lot of issues that have to be resolved in this regard, and I think that's some current discussion going on with regards to that. However, and then if I compare it also with the Netherlands, that is highly industrialized. If you compare it with other countries, the Netherlands is the second largest country in the world, second largest food importer in the world behind the US. The US imports quite a lot of food. Then next to them is the Netherlands. So they export a lot. They export a lot of food to other countries, which is very very good. In fact, most of the dairy products we drink in Nigeria come from the Netherlands, because they are more a dairy country. But then if you look at the amount of gas emission they contribute, I looked at it and I said, okay, they've been able to actually work around an holistic approach to mitigating their impact on climate change. They are really working around it. In fact, I heard someone say, I think it was a publication that says the Netherlands is one of the most sustainable countries in the world. And of course, Wageningen University was also one of. So we must begin to, we are not contributing so much. However, we are going to be experiencing a lot from the consequences of the greenhouse gas emission. One of my suggestions would be the country should stay flexible. We have to stay flexible. We have to be adaptable in our food choices in the country. We have to begin to look holistically into the ingredients, the raw materials that goes into the food that we produce. We have to remember that any small change in our daily food choices can collectively have a positive impact on climate change and so on the environment. And so that is a very important thing to do. We have to find a way to conserve water. So because the definition of sustainable food is that sustainable diet is affordable, sustainable diet is healthy, sustainable diet is not degrading on the biodiversity, and that's water, for example. So we have to find a way to always learn to conserve water, use saving water techniques in the kitchen. I can give an example. Instead of running the water while you are washing, fill the basin, fill the sink with water and do your washing, and then those are ways to do that. And we can find a way to also to educate people when they use public toilets, when they use different toilets, office toilets, and all of that, to say 1 liter of water saved is, we can do that statistic for them and everybody, because that's also how I learned it in the Netherlands. So that's very important. But nutritionally, we have to support, promote all foods, eating more of all food rather than processed food. That way, we are also preserving the environment by reducing our consumption of processed foods.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate all you have told us today, because it's been incredibly insightful. I have a full notepad of jottings here. But that was indeed the last question, and our next portion of this will be the Q&A, where I will be asking audience questions, and I see we already have one question. So if anyone else has a question, put it in the chat box and I will read it out to Dr. Owolabi. Now, his Bakes are all said, my question isn't related to the topic. I have I really have interest in the area of public health nutrition, but a bit unsettled on the appropriate routes to achieve that. My background is optometry. So do you have any insights?
Okay, let's do a bit of career development. So really, I think you can chat with me later, really, because I do quite a lot of career development also for people when it comes to nutrition and some other aspect of studies. So indeed, I think there's nothing restricting you from doing this. There's nothing restricting you from delving into public health nutrition, and you already have a good background optometry. So I think you'll be wondering a good background. Yes, well, up to it is a science. It is a scientist. You have a science background, anyways. That's what I mean. So you will be. It will be very easy for you uh, to adapt to what's going on in public health nutrition. As an optometrist, I think you already do some public health work activities anyways. So because public health is all about the community, it's all about the welfare of the community. It's about the intervention that has to happen for the community. It's about understanding what is going on in the community. So which I think with optometry, you already probably do something related. So you are not too far from it, so you can do it. But I think I can probably do a further discussion with you later if you don't mind. Thank you.
Dr. Owolabi, just so that everyone that is here, can they message you even if it's exactly like this young man or this young lady? Can they message you on your Instagram?
Yes, please. Very open. You can message me on my Instagram. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to run down everything said here. And so if at the end you feel like there's something that you like to state again, Bakes are us. His Instagram is right here. And
No,
so will you
I will just put my email address so you can do that as well.
so
Yeah.
one of the things you stated was that we're not really affected by the we have done to affect climate change, but mainly what other countries and other continents have done that are now really affecting us. And we also spoke about the fact that communities such as the coastal line communities and the northerners in Nigeria are really the ones being affected. And we also spoke about things to change what's going on, like the policies that affect all these people, these coastal areas and the northerners should actually have them on the table so they can advocate for themselves and can tell the policymakers and the government what they actually need. And you also spoke about on the data, um, research on data that we can get brain patterns, which you said that we don't really have. And I believe also that we should have this data access. When I was doing research, this is the type of things I would have loved to
Yeah.
find. We also spoke about strategies to help with mitigating the effect of climate change on nutrition and agriculture, such as drug-resistant crops, alarms which warn farmers when there's going to be unexpected weather, a hike or a reduction. And you also spoke about diversifying our food production, not just rice. We cannot get rice every day. Spoke about having a small farm or just a small garden where someone can be able to get what they need, even if it's just tomato or pepper, like your parents did. And we also spoke about teaching about climate change in school, which I truly believe is the future. And we spoke about food waste and reduction of water waste. So, is there anything I or
No, I think you've captured them all actually. The most important one. So those are very important points that we have to take note of.
thank you so much, Dr. for coming here to educate us. Thank you so much for the viewers here. Has been educative for me. I hope for you guys as well. Thank you so much, sir, for taking time out of your day to teach us all of this. It was
Thank you.
incredible, sir.
Thank you very much to you and then also to NC Africa for the invitation and then to discuss this kind of topic. this is something we need to know, and then to begin to see how we can provide intervention towards the solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.